Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here. Back with another video. I'm just gonna put a bit of light on. Um, this month I haven't really, as usual, I haven't managed to put my ideas into action. But on that note, I would love to know before I start my list, ideas number 1 to 10, if you have any suggestions on how I can put my ideas into action and things like that. How can I finally put these things into practice and get them started and that kind of thing? So if you have any suggestions on that, I'd love to know. I'd say I put the light on because it's already a bit dim. It's 2:45 now here in the UK. I didn't manage to get my butt out of bed till like 2 o'clock. I kept going back to sleep as usual. My own fault. I keep going to sleep late and stuff like that. But I'm struggling to get motivated. But yeah, I just didn't have the energy to get out of bed, unfortunately. So already over half the day's gone and I haven't really done much. But I didn't manage to put together a dyslexia group that I wanted to do to travel. I didn't manage to put together any groups to support the black community or things like that, or interview members of the black or Brit or dyslexic communities or things like that yet. So I suppose I sometimes say that joke about I need extra time because I'm dyslexic. In exams or things like that, dyslexics often get extra time here in Britain. I don't know about other countries, but that's where the joke comes from. So people from overseas, if they watch this, might not quite these videos might not understand that joke about needing extra time. I was going to say I forgot to say yesterday for Dyslexia Fridays when I tried to finally get around to finishing it. That whenever Dyslexia United plays Reading FC, the match always goes to extra time because it's Reading. It's spelled reading, but it's pronounced Reading. Anyway, I'm going to try and get back to the topic of Black empowerment for Black History Month, theme of Black support and empowerment and that kind of thing. And hope you like this video. And again, I'd love to know any suggestions you have for how I can put these ideas into practice and how I can support Black people in Britain and all around the world in things like starting up their own businesses or things like that. So with that being said, here goes. So number 1, I'd love to support Black-owned startups. I'd love to encourage companies to invest in and fund and support 40 Black people to start their own businesses, and sometimes as a group perhaps, to start their own little startups or whatever, at least to get started and that kind of thing. So companies like Virgin Enterprises, Berkshire Hathaway, even Cascade Investment, BlackRock, quite fitting perhaps, which is supposed to be one of the biggest companies in the world, and so many other investors, people like Starbucks. I normally use this one for a Saturday because it's like Starbucks remind me of Saturdays and startups for some reason. But yeah, just it's Starbucks, but for some reason that reminds me of Saturdays and startups as well. It's similar that as I suppose that it starts with. Anyway, yeah. So I'd love to support 40. So I'm trying to get to the point. I'd love to support 40 Black people to start their own businesses in all possible countries all around the world, and even maybe to network with each other. Which brings me to point number 2. I'd love for them to network together and support each other and help those startups to become SMEs, and also maybe for companies to support 40 Black SMEs. I wanted to do this before I turned 41. Unfortunately, I failed with that as I'm now unfortunately 41, but symbolically like as I turn 40 and things like that. But yeah, I'd love to support, as I say, 40 Black startups and SMEs, and also look at how they can network together and learn from each other to grow those startups into SMEs and maybe even into bigger companies. Number 3, I'd love to look into reasons to support African countries such as South Africa and Central Africa and the rest of Africa. For instance, loss of liberty because of the fact they were colonized. I do want to focus on 2 things, as I often say, like for October, Black empowerment and dyslexic empowerment, although I think it's also Cancer Awareness Month as well, so maybe that's another thing I could have focused on more, or I could focus on more for the remaining days. But those are 2 main things I want to focus on. But just to briefly talk about the terrible situation obviously in the Middle East, in Israel, between Israel and Palestine. I want to talk about what, as soon as possible, why I wish to remain neutral in that war, because I think taking sides will only mean more innocent civilians will be killed and injured and that kind of thing. Because I think instead we need to. I think we need to look at a neutral sort of way, which is beneficial for everyone as much as possible. And one of the things I was thinking about is the Balfour Declaration, which was made by Britain. And I think, well, I was watching a documentary and it made me think, because they said that the Ottoman Empire, if I can pronounce it properly, which is present-day Turkey, had a huge empire as well. So it'd be unfair to just blame other European nations like Britain, but for empire and stuff like that, for an anti-imperialist like me, I think if I'm going to be fair, for me to condemn, it would only be fair to condemn all countries that colonize others or invade others at all, which to me is pretty much the same sort of principle. I'm sure every country that invades has the same intention. And talking about freedom and loss of liberty and that kind of thing. But I think there's an argument as to why Britain and Turkey should take in many Palestinian migrants and refugees and whatnot, whatever the difference is, because a lot of the problem probably was created by Britain and Turkey and countries like that invaded, or at least those two countries that invaded Palestine and governed it and gave, and arguably I suppose probably gave their land away without permission. But I mean, as ever, I always say freedom of speech, freedom of expression. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. But I think that Britain and Turkey should take in, I don't know what number, but I think they should take in migrants and refugees from Palestine, because that would, at the moment, they need that safety. I mean, I suppose it is a difficult issue knowing that they are actually going to be migrants and refugees, not people like Hamas or Hamas supporters or any terrorists or anything like that. So that's the difficult issue to get right. But that's why I was thinking that Britain and Turkey should take in more migrants and refugees from Palestine, and compared to other countries, because they were the ones that governed it and ruled the people in those countries. So I think it would be only fair. And as a British, although I'm not patriotic, as a British citizen, I think that would only be fair. But I know that's going a bit off topic, but I thought I'd mention that one. Anyway, moving on. Number 4, I'd love to know if any people out there would like to support more and do more to support more black startups and SMEs in Britain and all around the world. Getting back onto topic. So yeah, I mean, people might say they already support black-owned startups and SMEs, but I wonder if people would like to do so more, or those who don't do so, if you would like to get into doing so, at least for October, let's say, or for Black Pound Day and things like that, and Black Business Day and whatnot, which I think that's August the 23rd. Anywho, moving on, number 5. Also on that note, I'd love to know how we can support black people more in Britain and around the world, including to reach their goals and aspirations. I hope no one sees these videos and think I'm talking about like being the victim or the victim mindset, as I'm not black myself anyway, but even saying that black people should be treated as victims or the victim mindset. But I mean, I suppose they were kind of victims in terms of colonization, but I do believe it should be an empowering message about how they could start their own businesses and do well and get funding and things like that, not turn to crime or even benefits. I feel a bit hypocritical with the latter because I want benefits myself. But these videos are about, both in terms of dyslexia and the black community, is about empowering people and talking about what they can achieve, not what they can't achieve. I hope that makes sense. But I'd love to support black ambition, including more black people start their own businesses, startups and whatnot, being involved in so many different areas which could be empowering, which I hope to come to in more detail. Number 6, as I often say, I'd love to see what's going on in alliteration. I'd love to see what black people can do for Italian soccer, for any Americans out there, and like celebrate black people in sports and things like that, including the migrants that come to Italy. Sorry for repeating some of the things I said before, but and that's my infamous line, but I would love to see what, like, the migrants that come from Africa and maybe even other parts of the world, what they could do to help build stadiums, build new stadiums, build academies, those who are good at building, hopefully in the safest possible environment. And Italy could offer safe passage to a certain amount of migrants from Africa. I'm going to focus mainly on Africa because it's black empowerment. That could also be other parts of the world, and how they could in turn benefit town football. I would love to, I forgot to say in my video yesterday when I was talking about dyslexics and what we could contribute to Italian football. One of the ideas is to bring together, maybe I should keep these ideas a bit more secret anyway, but I'm going to say it now, but Italian politicians, councillors, policy and decision makers, businesses, and just the wider society generally, including those from migrant communities, and look at how they can unite through soccer. For any Americans out there, I'm going to use the term soccer because it's Saturday, and how all of Italian society, and including those from the diaspora, going a little bit off topic from the Black empowerment thing, could come together for Italian soccer. I only want Italians to play soccer and not other sports. I wouldn't want them to play tennis or cricket or American football or anything like that, which to me is not the real football, but anyway, it's a side point. But as I say, I would love for Italians to play soccer, or calcio as they call it in Italy, for hours a day as possible. I say on football, on Fridays I call it football. Anyway, moving on, number 7, similar for Celtic. It would be a bit different for Celtic, obviously, because obviously they're one team in Scotland rather than the whole country. But I would love to see how they can work with politicians and councillors, migrant and refugee agencies and organisations, and how Celtic basically can work with people from all different backgrounds, migrants, refugees, the black community. As a side note, a bit off topic, but Asians and others, even gypsies or others as well. But yeah, and maybe how minorities can work together. Number 8, how can other minorities support black-owned startups, SMEs and whatnot? How can POC support them? That'd be interesting to find out and to work on. But yeah, I hope to support as many black-owned startups and SMEs as possible, and see positive things about the black community and what they can achieve. Again, what they can do, and not so much what they can't do, and what organisations, I'll say, such as, I'll get it properly there, Starbucks and others can do for black-owned startups. Number 9, how black people can make networks that can support, as I say, black-owned startups and SMEs. And I think if they support their own community, that could encourage companies like Starbucks, Microsoft, IBM, Dell, Sainsbury's, Tesco, all sorts of companies basically, and the list can go on, how that can encourage them to support the black community because they see that they support each other, and there's an incentive to invest in them. And number 10, including young black people to start their own businesses. I'd love to know, again, any suggestions you have on those sorts of things. And I am out. Peace and love.